Congressman Adam Smith, General Philip Breedlove. With us, General, if you'll stand by for a second, I'm going to start with the congressman here. I know you think I am wrong, but what makes this show different is that we invite people on to tell me why. So the floor is yours.
Well, the biggest thing you're wrong about, and you're not wrong about how NATO needs to change, but when you talk about how weak Europe is, they were weak in part because we wanted them that way. After the end of World War II, we'd fought 2 world wars where we had stayed out of European affairs, not our business, and it didn't go well. We got dragged into 2 wars because the world is interconnected. If Europe's fighting, it impacts us. They were sinking our ships. It was having a negative impact.
There was that little thing called Pearl Harbor, too.
Well, that led to it. But even before that, I mean, there wasn't a Pearl Harbor in World War I, and we got involved anyway because of the effect it was having on us. So we decided after World War II, it's better if we controlled the guns. There's the old cliche of European politics: Germany down, Russia out, the U.S. in. We wanted the Europeans to be growing their economy and to stop fighting each other, to not have militaries. That was the deal. And when President Trump says we didn't get anything out of it, we got the most powerful country and the greatest economy the world has ever seen. Now, things have changed a little bit, and Europe is starting to step up. But to blow all of that up is to misunderstand what it's done for us over the course of the last 80 years.
Well, I think you are completely right, and I said it led to the greatest economic expansion that ever happened. General Breedlove, to you, help us understand the European mentality here, especially that of Western Europe, because there's a very different tone from the Poles, say, and the rest of the countries that border from NATO to Vladimir Putin versus what you're hearing from the French, the Spaniards, and the United Kingdom. Do they take the United States for granted, or they just don't believe that Trump will do what he says?
Well, again, thanks for having me on, Leland, again, and it's a pleasure to be on with the congressman. I would offer that they are now taking it very serious that the United States could depart and that they've over-relied on the United States. And frankly, I think that transition started several years ago. There are nations that held out too long, and now they get it. And I think that that's going to make a lot of changes in the way they think. Now, what we hope to do now is find a path forward in cooperation so that we don't blow it up. And we all reap the benefits you talked about. I tell people all the time, the next 75 years of NATO are going to be more important than the last 75 because our enemies are much tougher and they're much more sly.
Well, a couple things there. One, which is, why would countries that are so weak act so arrogantly? But there is sort of proof to what I am saying. Here, for example, is more from the aviator wearing Emmanuel Macron.
China is welcome, but what we need is more Chinese foreign direct investment in Europe, in some key sectors, to contribute to our growth, to transfer some technologies, and not just to export towards Europe some devices or products.
With friends like that, seriously, who needs enemies? How can you at one hand say America should keep protecting us, but by the way, what we really need is more from the Chinese that want to challenge America?
Isn't that a chicken and egg situation now? I mean, if we're saying to Europe, piss off, we're not going to defend you anymore, and then Europe says, okay, if you're not going to be there, we better look abroad, we better look to other options. Let me tell you, we spent a lot.
Why so quickly to say to America that has done so much for you when you are in such a weak position?
I can help. So, something has happened in the last couple decades. We have put enormous pressure on our partners to not do business with China. Huawei, UK made a decision to abandon Huawei, to not do all kinds of things with China, to abandon the Belt and Road Initiative, and a lot of countries have. So you're sort of caught in between there. But let's also not lose track of the fact that when Trump says he's going to take Greenland by force, he
hasn't said that, but go ahead.
He has threatened it. He is absolutely threatened it.
Well, let's play what the president said. He was asked a number of times today. He was asked a number of times today about Greenland. Roll the tape.
If a consequence of your determination to take control of Greenland is the ultimate breakup of the NATO alliance, is that a price you're willing to pay?
Nobody's done
more for NATO than I have, as I said before. Whether you like it or not, it's only as good as we are. If NATO doesn't have us, NATO is not very strong.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
That doesn't sound like he abandoned the idea of using force. But my point is, he's detonating the concept of sovereignty. He wants to take Canada. He says he's the president of Venezuela. And if he detonates the concept of sovereignty, China claims the sovereign territory of almost a dozen different countries around it. It's, here we go. Everyone grab whatever they can. So forget NATO for a moment. The notion that the more powerful you are, you have a right to take whatever sovereign territory you want is also
how do we tell the Chinese they can't when we did? Now, the question is if you buy it or you make some deal for it, that's different. I want to bring the general back here. In general, you know the Europeans quite well. You dealt with them. Where, and I go back to what I asked the congressman, where does the arrogance of Macron come from? And I am wondering if there is not other parts of NATO, I'm thinking about the Poles specifically, who wouldn't be more than happy to try and find, I think we just lost the general there, so we'll come back to Congressman Adam Smith here. I think about what is actually what Trump wants, which is some kind of deal over Greenland and others. Why would those countries not make it?
Well, understand something.
You don't think, can we agree that America would be better with Greenland?
I don't, okay? Because Greenland, because it's part of NATO, which we belong to NATO, we can do whatever we want with Greenland. We have a military base on Greenland.
We can't kick the Chinese out.
I visited. Absolutely, we can kick the Chinese out. We can kick the Chinese out just as easily as part of NATO as we can on our own. We don't have to detonate the concept of sovereignty. We have a treaty with Greenland that allows us to put whatever military bases, whatever military forces we want on Greenland. So we don't need to take it to defend it against it. And by the way, China and Russia are not threatening to take Greenland. Russia is absolutely threatening to take Ukraine. And Trump consistently undermines the alliance
so
I'm glad
you brought up Ukraine, because there is this whole idea that the one thing that would make Vladimir Putin more happy than anything is us taking Greenland, and the Europeans keep putting Ukraine out there is the only issue that matters. This was the Treasury Secretary today talking about how the Europeans are dealing with Ukraine. Take a listen.
Just to be clear, that we have Europe buying Russian oil still, 4 years later, they are financing the war against themselves.
General, back with us now. At some level, what is it going to have to happen for the Europeans to actually change?
Well, first, Leland, I'd like to answer the question that you asked me before the burp in the internet there, and say this. I do believe that the whole discussion of Greenland has been a real change for the current set of, as you said, language and approach that Europe's taking. Just before the issue of Greenland, remember, Germany and France were leading a very strong push to support Ukraine. And there was a strong a feeling of cooperation on how we would move forward on Ukraine. But now that we have this latest issue, you see Europe retrenching a little bit and using the language which you took offense with. What is it going to take for the Europeans to really change? I believe they are already doing that to a certain degree. The Deutschland, Germany, is beginning to ramp up its spending and its investment, and that will make all the difference in the world. You know the size of that economy, and if they spend the amount that they say they're going to spend, things will begin to change. And even though France's military is modest in comparison to some, they are starting to invest as well. And when those two do, old NATO comes with them. New NATO already has the right idea.
Estonia, Latvia, they're all spending big money. General, I promised the congressman the last 30 seconds, which has to be 30 seconds.
Yeah. No, I think we have to look at the broader picture here. Where does this alliance go? And I think looking at the past and saying Europe's never done anything for us, again, after 1,000 years of them fighting each other, we didn't want them armed. We set that deal. Now that the deal is changing, as the general pointed out, they are stepping up. They've spent more money per capita defending Ukraine than we have, all right? So there is a change in that alliance. I don't think we should detonate it. I think we should change it and update it. And threatening the sovereignty of one of our NATO partners will detonate it, not update it.
Probably what my mother would say, you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar.
All right, fair enough, Leland. Thank you.
Good to see you, Congressman. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.